What's going on, guys? So today I thought I'd just take a look at my M1 portfolio. So I use M1 for automated investing. I have it just set to invest a certain dollar amount every day. And then I have other trading accounts in a Roth IRA with Fidelity. But this is my portfolio. So you can see 72% broad ETF, 6% semiconductors, 6% digital payment, 4% disruptive, 3% deep learning, 3% data center, 3% cybersecurity, and 3% big tech. And these are all pies within a pie. So if we click into the first one here, you can see this sliver then gets broken down again into all these. So across my entire M1, there's 100 holdings, but obviously it buys and sells all that automatically, so I'm not actually managing that. You can see the dividend yield for this chunk is 1.165%. The biggest holding, and this goes for my entire portfolio, the biggest holding is VTI, which is 50% of this pie. Then 9% ICLN, which is a clean energy ETF. 6% VBR, which is a small cap value ETF. 6% VONG, which is just an ETF of the Russell 1000 index. 6% VIG, which is dividend appreciation ETF, so stocks that are increasing their dividend at a solid rate, even if they aren't necessarily paying a high one now. And then XLK, just a tech sector ETF, 6%. 6% of both ARK-K and ARK-G. One is just the overall ARK Innovation ETF, which is like their best picks from across all of their different ETFs. And then ARK-G is obviously genomics, biomed oriented. And then I just have 1% of these last five here. So the ARK FinTech, ARK Autonomous Vehicle, ARK Next Generation Internet, and then there's another clean energy fund there. I actually dialed them down because they're really heavily Tesla, and I have them elsewhere in my pie. And then there's just a momentum ETF. Next up, semiconductors. So 34% of this pie is just the overall semiconductor ETF. And then the rest is all individual holdings. So we have a quarter of it is TSM, which is one of my favorite stocks. They make the chips for AMD. Those are also the chips that go into like your Xboxes and PlayStations. Big into ARM manufacturing. They make all of Apple's chips now, and they have made the ones for the iPhones and iPads for a long time, and now the computers are also, their chips are being made by them. Next up, these are all pretty similar companies. They just make different types of chips, so I'm just going to run through them. LRCX, Lam Research Corp, 10%, Qualcomm, 6%, Skyworks, 5%, Cirrus, 5%, Broadcom, 5%, Applied Materials, 5%, and then Nano Dimension, I've talked about in previous videos, is a 3D chip maker, which is kind of like a speculative play. Then we got a digital payment pie here. So you can see it's split 32% between MasterCard and Visa. I really like those two stocks. Impeccable business model. They own the entire networks without any of the real liability because they don't actually, they aren't actually responsible if people default on their loans. The issuing banks are. And they have, 40-50% profit margins, which is just insane. And I think we're going to keep moving towards a cashless society. So I think those two will continue to be in an upward trend, also growing their dividend at a nice rate. Then we got Square. They own Cash App, which, Obviously, the Cash App segment of it is on its own a pretty big selling point, but they also have the point of sale services for small business, and they also do brokerage accounts in crypto. Discover. I kind of picked up most of that down in the March dip, and that was kind of just because they were so cheap. I don't love them as much as Visa and MasterCard because they are actually their own bank for a lot of their cards, so they're liable if their customers default or don't pay back their credit card bill. IPOE, this is one of Chamath's SPACs. This one's merging with SoFi, which is like an all-in-one finance platform. It has a ton of active users already. I think long-term they could be really neat. And then Coupa, which is a enterprise software used for purchasing. You can look them up if you're more interested in them. I believe I've talked about them in the past too. Next up is my disruptive pie. So this is where, like, if I see something that I like, that I don't want to hold in my trading account, but I think it's too risky to put in my Roth IRA, I'll just throw it in here. So you can see Lemonade. I've talked about them before. Same with ISRG. Lemonade's an insurtech company. ISRG makes machines for surgery. Elastic and Shopify are both web-oriented. Elastic's more back-end. Shopify, everyone knows. Tesla speaks for itself. Novanta, ABB, these are kind of plays on infrastructure and manufacturing. We all know Teladoc. Maxar is a space company that are making satellite network components. Plug and Phase, those two are electric vehicle. Adobe, everyone knows, subscription-based model around all their applications for professionals. CRISPR Therapeutics is genomics. VeriSign is internet stock around web domains, stuff like that. Pacar is electric truck maker. Salesforce, everyone knows Salesforce. Next there is another green energy. Anaplan, I believe, is I think it's medical. I could look it up. So it's a enterprise program. Looks like it's driven around business performance, probably similar to Coupa. Train Technologies, they actually own a lot of environmental infrastructures, and I believe they also recently acquired Thermo King, who makes the freighting trucks that have the refrigeration units built in, which could be really cool for vaccine distribution. Hologics provides healthcare and benefits around women's care, so specifically like pregnancy-oriented benefits for corporate customers. They're growing at a pretty big rate. Generac, kind of a play on both the massive amount of storms that we've been having lately, and also they're getting into the solar space. Cloudflare, same basket as VeriSign and Elastic, internet protected oriented services. Talked about them before. Medallia and Progeny, I bought so long ago I can't even remember. I think they're in a similar boat with Anaplan, some kind of disruptive tech. It's kind of just a spec play. Blink is another. They make EV charging. NVIDIA, the graphics cards. Switch is a data center play. And you'll see a couple of these at the bottom here that I dropped to 1%. I actually hold elsewhere in my pie. I just didn't want to sell them from this chunk of the pie because it'd be a taxable event. So I just dropped them all the way down to 1%. So I'm pretty much, it's never going to get purchased again in this sliver of the pie. So we'll talk about these later. This is a deep learning pie. A lot of these I researched initially just to kind of pick a basket, and then I just put them all in here to get kind of an average, make my own ETF. So I don't know everything about probably 2/3 of these. So I'm not going to front like I do. NVIDIA, I think, is a great play for the hardware side of like machine learning going forward, just because their hardware is just leagues ahead of a lot of other competition in terms of the high-end stuff. And they also just acquired ARM, which I think is going to be a pretty big business segment going forward as we move towards like mobile computing. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, kind of a given. Splunk, IBM, C3, Palantir's been pretty hot lately. I'm sure everyone knows them. Facebook, Baidu, which is an ADR, and then APN, Cloudera, eGain, and Twilio. Don't really know too much about them. Researched them when I added them to the pie, and I haven't really checked this since. Next up, data center, kind of a similar play. QTS manages data centers. DLR, same deal. Switch, same deal. They're on 100% renewable. They're a pretty small stock. Super high security. If you look up pictures of their facilities, they're crazy. Iron Mountain, they're more into data preservation, but they've gotten into data centers lately. They do still do a massive part of their business in like customers' paper data, but they're trying to make a pivot to online. Western Digital would be hard drives for all these data centers, just to play like that, kind of like Seagate, although I don't think I have Seagate in here. TSM, chips, NVIDIA chips, Micron chips, Microchip. Equinix is another data center play. GDS, same deal with Cone. CCI is going to be your cellular communication REIT. A couple of these are actually REITs, a lot of them. Core, I think that's the same deal. AMD for chips, and then AMT is just like CCI, cellular data REIT. Cybersecurity, I think, is going to be a huge deal going forward. Again, I know the top, my favorites out of here, but then all of the rest, I kind of just made my own ETF. So I don't know everything about all of them. I just picked what looked like the strongest ones when I initially did my research. So we have 28% just a broad cybersecurity ETF. I thought it was all right. I didn't love their holdings, but it makes my job a lot simpler. And then Cloudflare, who's one of my favorites. CrowdStrike's been in the news a lot because there was some senators that picked up shares of them going into some of these big hacks that we had, which is kind of crazy. Fastly, they host TikTok. Splunk's data and kind of computer security oriented data security, and most of the rest of these I'm not too well versed on. FireEye's another cybersecurity. Most of these are cybersecurity. Okta, they do authentication, like one-click log-on, integrated Windows log-on. If you guys go into the corporate world, you probably see that a lot on your laptops. I like Dynatrace a lot, and the rest of these are all just miscellaneous cybersecurity companies for the most part. And then the last one is just I wanted a little bit more exposure to these because aside from the broad ETF slice, these aren't really included in a lot of them. There's a little bit of like Google and Amazon and like the deep learning one, but I wanted a little more exposure. This is only 3% of my pie, so not a ton, but you can see we have Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Tesla, and ISRG. Probably wouldn't typically be included with them, but I'm just bullish on them long, so I threw them in here. So that's my pie. I will leave the link to this in the description if you guys, for whatever reason, decide that you want to mimic this pie. Not a financial advisor, so take all this with a grain of salt, do your own research. But that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.